In every corner of the thousand-star systems of the Galactic Federation, kids are told boogeyman stories. Tales to keep them from wandering into the weird, untamed parts of the galaxy. They're stories of cosmic horrors and void leviathans. But one legend is whispered with a special kind of dread. The story of the death beasts of Terra. And of all the monsters from that world, one name stands out as the most terrifying: the Canis dirus, the dire wolf. It was a creature of myth, a species of pure predatory perfection. Its legend was burned into the galactic archives not just for its ferocity, but for its mysterious vanishing act. The official record lists the species with a single chilling label: extinct, wiped from the galaxy by the very creatures who shared its homeworld, the primitive, soft-skinned early humans. This created a paradox that scholars debated for centuries. How could a species as physically unimpressive as humanity possibly take down an apex predator that famous? The logical and terrifying answer was that humans must have a capacity for destruction far beyond what their biology suggested. They didn't just beat the dire wolf. They erased the Interspecies Academy of Galactic Unity was a place for quiet learning, not primal fear. It's where the galaxy's best and brightest came together to build bridges, not walls. Today was Cultural Heritage Day, an annual event known more for being painfully long than for being exciting. A gelatinous student from Xylos 9 was just wrapping up, projecting a shimmering hologram of his planet's native glowing moss. Its gentle bioluminescence was met with polite, but very muted applause. The whole atmosphere was sterile, academic, and predictably safe. It was the calm before a storm the galaxy didn't even know was coming. Professor Calyx, a towering Zenthian whose 4 multifaceted eyes had seen centuries of these presentations, scanned the day's roster. His gaze landed on the next name: Alex Ryder, the Academy's very first human exchange student. The topic listed was ancient Terran symbiosis. It sounded surprisingly intellectual. Calyx had been worried the human might present on something dreadfully primitive, like their chaotic combustion-powered cars or their strange obsession with fermented grain drinks. Symbiosis, though, that was a respectable field. Or so the galaxy thought. Alex walked to the front of the lecture hall, a friendly, if slightly nervous, smile on his face. By all galactic standards, he was completely, utterly unassuming. He didn't have the natural armor of the insectoid Cathar, the telepathic grace of the Zenthian, or the pure density of the silicon-based Gorn. He was just soft, squishy, a biological curiosity. "Afternoon, Professor, everyone," Alex began, his voice surprisingly steady. "For my cultural heritage presentation, I wanted to talk about a relationship that really defined my species' history." As he hooked his datapad up to the hall's holographic projector, he glanced at Professor Calyx. "Just a heads up, sir, I brought a practical component for this. A living piece of Earth's history, you might say." One of Calyx's eyes twitched. A living component? The rules on that were incredibly strict. Most species brought artifacts, holograms, maybe a carefully contained plant, but the human seemed so earnest, so harmless. "As long as it complies with all Academy biosecurity protocols, Mr. Ryder," the professor replied, his voice a low hum. The human's easy confidence was enough to quiet the professor's fleeting worry. After all, what could he possibly have? A Terran flower? A colorful feathered bird in a cage? The possibilities were all perfectly benign. Alex cleared his throat and gestured to the projector. A fossilized skeleton, massive and terrifying, flickered to life above him. Its skull was long, filled with teeth that looked like daggers. The frame was a monument to power. A collective gasp, a series of clicks and whistles of alarm shot through the hall. Even as just an image, the creature radiated menace. The Galactic Archives list this species, Canis dirus, the dire wolf, as an extinct monster. "A death beast," Alex said, his voice echoing in the suddenly silent room. And the archives aren't entirely wrong. It was one of the most successful predators of its time. A pack hunter with terrifying intelligence and strength. The alien students shifted uncomfortably. They all knew this picture. It was the monster from the bedtime stories, the ultimate cautionary tale about a savage, primitive world. Alex leaned forward, his expression turning serious. But the archives made a critical mistake. An error born from millennia of distance and bad data. The record confuses this species with another, a close relative that survived. The galaxy assumes humanity wiped out all of our world's major predators with sheer, brutal force. The truth, he paused, letting it hang in the air, is far more human. He swiped his data pad, and the skeleton of the dire wolf vanished. The dire wolf did go extinct. It was too specialized, unable to adapt to a changing climate and the loss of its prey. But its smaller, more adaptable cousin, Canis lupus, the gray wolf, survived. And when faced with this incredible predator, humanity did something no one in this room would ever expect. We didn't try to destroy it. We formed a partnership. The silence in the room was now thick with confusion. A partnership? With a predator? Then Alex spoke the words that would be seared into the Academy's history forever. The galaxy remembers the beast we fought, but it forgot the one we befriended. To demonstrate the result of the longest and most successful domestication project in my planet's history, I've brought a direct descendant. He turned his head and gave a short, sharp whistle. The lecture hall's side entrance slid open, and in it walked. To the aliens whose only frame of reference was the nightmare legend of the dire wolf, the creature that entered was the myth made flesh. It was enormous, a mountain of muscle and thick gray and white fur. Its head was broad, its eyes sharp and intelligent, and when its mouth opened in what looked like a grin, it revealed a set of truly formidable teeth. It was the death beast from the legends, and a human had just unleashed it inside a school. The panic wasn't loud. It was a deep, silent, primal terror that sucked all the air out of the room. The Xylofian student collapsed into a shimmering puddle of stressed-out gelatin. Several insectoids scrambled up the walls, their claws scratching frantically against the acoustic panels. Professor Calyx, acting on pure 100-year-old teaching instinct, slammed a button on his lectern. A shimmering blue energy field crackled to life, shielding him and the first few rows. His 4 eyes were wide with a terror he hadn't felt since he was a larva. "By the eternal stars, human, what have you done?" he boomed, his voice trembling. The Academy's central alarm began to shriek, a piercing galaxy-wide code for a Class 1 bio-threat. A death beast was loose. Alex just stood there, completely bewildered, his hands raised. What's wrong?" "It's just Tundra. He's a good boy, I promise." The creature, Tundra, sensed the overwhelming fear. He let out a soft, confused whine and nudged Alex's hand with his wet nose, looking for reassurance. Then, to make matters infinitely worse, he let out a huge, jaw-stretching yawn, displaying his entire arsenal of teeth. He followed this terrifying display by flopping down onto the floor, resting his massive head on his paws with a contented sigh. The contrast was so ridiculous it was almost funny. The galaxy's most mythologized monster was acting like a lazy, overgrown pet. Through the shimmering energy shield, Professor Calyx watched. He was a scientist, first and foremost, and his terror was already being replaced by a burning curiosity. The creature showed zero signs of aggression. Its posture was relaxed, its gaze on the human was adoring. The death beast was showing textbook bonded affection. He cautiously lowered the shield. Alex, finally putting the pieces together, let out a shaky laugh. Oh, wow. You all think he's a dire wolf." He ran a hand through his hair. No, this is Canis lupus familiaris, a domestic dog. His ancestors were gray wolves. We didn't kill them. We made them part of our family." He knelt beside the huge dog and scratched him behind the ears. Tundra's back leg started thumping against the floor. "Go say hi, buddy," Alex whispered. Tundra stood, his tail now giving a slow, powerful wag. He padded calmly towards one of the Cathar students who was frozen stiff with fear. The giant creature lowered his head and gently, delicately, licked the student's trembling manipulator claw. The alarms fell silent. The only sound in the entire lecture hall was the soft thump-thump-thump of a dog's tail wagging against a desk. Alex walked back to his lectern, his earlier nerves gone, replaced by a new confidence. He continued his presentation, but it wasn't just an academic report anymore. It was a correction of galactic history. He explained genetic divergence, evolutionary pressures, and that revolutionary moment when a human and a wolf decided that working together was better than fighting. He talked about how that bond allowed both species to conquer the globe, to thrive in the harshest places, and to become more than they ever could have been alone. Professor Kalix stepped forward, his multifaceted eyes blinking slowly as he absorbed the massive revelation. You didn't conquer your world's most dangerous predators, he said, his voice filled with a deep, profound awe. You befriended them. You took the monster from our nightmares, and you turned it into a companion. That lesson, delivered by one unassuming human and his sleepy dog, rippled out from the academy. The Class 1 bio-threat alert was officially canceled and replaced with a Priority 1 message labeled Galactic Archives, Urgent Update Required for Terran Fauna. The story of humanity changed that day. They were no longer seen as the brutish, mysteriously dominant species that had wiped out their world's monsters. They were now understood as something far stranger and, in a way, far more intimidating. They were the species that looked at a fanged predator and saw a friend. They didn't just climb to the top of their food chain. They invited their biggest. The galactic legend of the dire wolf of Terra was officially updated. It was no longer a story about a monster that was killed by an even bigger monster. It became a story about two apex predators, one of which was so unpredictably and dangerously different. It chose to love the other into submission. The galaxy had learned a new kind of respect for humanity, tinged with a healthy dose of fear. It wasn't a fear of their capacity for destruction, but of their impossible, terrifying capacity for affection. Because in the cold, uncaring void of space, what could possibly be more powerful or more frightening than a species that tames its demons not with fire, but with friendship? Tea competition to join them at the top.